Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this work session. The very first item on our agenda is a special recognition to Pam Harris, who is a member of our code inspections team. And so I'm going to invite Pam up for this special recognition. Hi, Pam. How long have you worked for the city?
It'll be 5 years in April.
5 years in April. Pam has recently achieved the Master Code Professional from the International Code Council, and I am informed that she is the very first woman in the state of Maryland to receive this level of certification. And so I want to present her with this framed certificate and publicly thank her for her service to the city. Our inspectors probably have, besides police officers and firefighters, one of the toughest jobs here in the city of Hagerstown. And to have the level of skill and knowledge and also the ability to communicate with people and to work towards solutions is very important in the work that Pam and all of our inspectors do. So I want to read what's on the certificate for everybody's knowledge out there. This is from the International Code Council. The International Code Council attests that the individual named on this certificate has satisfactorily demonstrated knowledge as required by the International Code Council by successfully completing the prescribed written examination based on codes and standards then in effect, and is hereby issued this certification as Master Code Professional. So Pam is I'm going to present this to her, but she is a woman of few words and very humble, so she has declined to give any speeches, but we're going to take some pictures after we do this presentation. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Return to the panel here. Awesome.
Alright, planning code staff up here.
Do you want us up on the steps?
Yeah,
or-
let's go up the steps.
You have a big wall.
We can actually move over more.
You're in front.
In the front. Do you want to just pick it up? Got a plane, take a step to your right. There's this zero. And Vicky step down next to the mayor. Step. There we go. Perfection. All right, right here on three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Everyone look like you like shampoo. Good. Want to do a family photo?
How many other people have achieved this level?
Do you want me to use one with your phone? Yeah. Or take one of them.
So she can set the bar for everybody here.
Quite an accomplishment.
Do you want me in the picture or not? How long did you have to study?
Okay. Wait for a moment. I forget the younger son.
You can't stand
Down
up
next to
behind
him.
us.
After down here, you guys, You hold it in? Okay. See you on the end. Yes. There we go. I can't see your smile, Zach. All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Good.
Congratulations. Thanks, family.
Okay, thank you.
That's awesome. I don't think there's very many in this state overall.
Quite an honor indeed, and I'm told that nobody in the city of Hagerstown has achieved this level of certification, and that very few people in the state have achieved that level. So congratulations again, Pam. Thank you. Next up, we just wanted to take a few minutes and recognize Hagerstown's achievement as a Sustainable Maryland certified community. And I asked Rodney to come give us an update on what has helped us achieve such a distinguished honor.
Here's the nice plaque that Mayor and Councilman Brubaker and I received, and Aaron received down
Can you
at
hold
the
that back up, please?
MML.
So you can see that there is plenty of space for us to continue to improve and win this award, correct?
For decades.
Yes. So we are expected to continue this. It's not we're not done, we're not resting on our laurels. We have more work to do, and do you want to talk more about the whole process? And
Yeah, thank you. Well, it started with this body passing a resolution last fall that kind of got us going down this road and registered with the Sustainable Maryland program. So we thank you for that. The program is set up basically that as the community takes actions to do things that are sustainable, green, things that improve the community. As you do those actions, you can accumulate points, and then if you obtain 150 points, then you become a registered community. It took a lot of work to compile all the things that we are doing, because the community is doing a lot of really great things, and we earned actually 305 points, far beyond what was needed to become registered, and it's because of a lot of the work of a lot of the department managers and the community in general. Some of the things that were particularly noteworthy from Sustainable Maryland was that the city has 3 green schools: Western Heights, Northern Middle, and Fountaindale, I'm sorry. That we host a farmer's market, that we now have a community garden, that we've received our bicycle-friendly community distinction. They described our Buy Local campaign as one of the most robust ones they've seen, and that includes the city center dollars, the pop-up shops, the various things that we do in the downtown. They thought they were very impressed by that. I think that was noteworthy of what the community's doing there. The Recycle Bank program, the green purchasing policy that the city has, our water conservation plan, the livable streets policy that we passed, and then of course Tree City USA. We've earned that distinction for over 30 years. So all those things were points towards getting this award. In the future, they want to have different levels of the award, like bronze, silver, gold, that kind of thing. So some of the things we're kicking around that we could keep doing is obviously working on some energy audits of the city buildings, stream cleanups. We want to continue some of those kind of things. Our recreation program and the active living, healthy lifestyles is part of this. And then LED street lights and things like that use less energy. Those are all things that we'll be bringing to you in the future.
so it's interesting because sustainability is always usually couched to some green energy or environmental thing, but it's also, there's an economic component here that
Right, a big
using
fact.
smart growth, the whole buy local concept, healthy eating, active lifestyles, parks and recreation, all of that plays a role in creating a sustainable community.
Yeah, local economies is one of the bigger areas of actions that are on here. So it's definitely economic driven too.
Well, I want to thank you and certainly all of the other staff and department heads for being leaders in this, in helping us achieve this award.
It's our pleasure.
Anyone have any questions?
Hey, can you carry any of those scores over to next year?
I thought that same thing.
Get to keep the points you already have?
Yeah.
I do have a question, Rodney. I didn't get a chance. We were pretty hectic down at Cambridge at the conference. Recycling. When they first brought this program to us, they said, why in the world is recycling, of which we're one of the leading ones, if I can, just from anecdotal evidence around the state. I think we have one of the leading programs. Did you find out, number one, are they considering adding that to the items under consideration? And if so, why not? Do you know?
It's not been added yet as an action item, is specifically a recycling
Right, I remember
program,
that,
but they
yeah.
gave us points for our Recycle Bank program. What Mike Honeyhake, the gentleman
Right.
that runs the program at the University of Maryland, said is that they're going to revamp this action list, and that's one of the items they want to
I
include.
pushed that on him, but I didn't get
Yeah.
a chance to talk to him down there because he was so busy, shepherding all
I
this
think he's
stuff.
very aware, so
Yeah, okay.
I think they'll be making those changes.
Because I think it's another, where we're in the lead and we didn't even get to use it. So,
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is our new city website design and an Engage Hagerstown update.
I don't mean to crash this presentation, but I wasn't on the initial list. But being
Perfectly
that-
acceptable.
Being that, there we go. There we go.
There you go.
Need technology, somebody from technology to figure this out. Being that Erin is now a new member of the family of IT and support services, what she is going to show you today will be, and Sarah as well, is the foundation of what a new website design will look like. What Erin and I are going to do with staff's help over the next couple of weeks is work to identify more of a strategy as to what we want to see produced from this website. That strategy is going to include how we presented the informative content, proactive and transactional content for our citizens and customers, potential commerce opportunities, selling, buying things off the website, data transparency and presentation that is sorely missing from the site, the ability for the site to be more mobile and more mobile friendly, as well as being platform independent, that you can pull the website up and it'll be easily readable from any device you pull up. So we'll be mapping that strategy out over the next few weeks, and we'll come back to you in the near future with what we think is going to be a good product for everyone to review and make it a much more functional, easy to manipulate, easy to get around in site than what we have now.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Are we going to be having the same company host the website, or is that part of the change?
Yes, we're still continuing to work with our vendor Civic Plus.
Okay, so because I understand some of the reasons for like not being mobile friendly were because of things on their end, is that?
That was
so
previously
they're-
the case. They've since transitioned
Right.
all of their websites to a mobile responsive design. But you have to go
Welcome
through
to 2015.
You have to go through a redesign process in order to achieve
Gotcha.
that.
Because I know, we had talked previously about other cities having the same issue with the same vendor, and I encourage you to gang up on them to try to help convince them that they need to move. So I'm glad that this is happening.
Yes, and we were able to negotiate a much more affordable deal with Civic Plus.
Good.
So it was a good outcome of teaming up with those other municipalities and getting a response on that.
Good.
So yes, thank you, Scott. The mobile responsive design was the impetus for the website redesign. Going through the process is very much, like starting over on a website. So we had to review all of our content, prepare for transition, and in doing the redesign, we saw other opportunities for enhancement, specifically refreshing the look of the website and making it more visual oriented, more image oriented, rather than including a lot of text. People are used to scrolling, we have more opportunities for people to see more length in the pages. It's more intuitive, using graphic buttons rather than text buttons, improving search capabilities, and making it more user-friendly. Our current website is very departmentalized, and through the benefit of hindsight through the first process, we see that we can retailer the website now to make it more intuitive for users who may not necessarily understand the structure of local government. Again, as Scott cited, this is kind of the first part of the process. Eric Hastings and I went through training last week to start to move some things around on the website, and we found some opportunities for things that we'd like to improve upon and enhance. So I'll just give you a look at the first draft and walk you through it.
Awesome.
So this is what people would see upon entering the site. We will be able to have a scrolling slideshow image. And again, even the command to scroll so people know that there's more information below. Again, preliminary stage, we have some graphic buttons. These are typically the areas that users are attracted to the most traffic that the website gets. Another benefit of this is being able to feature relevant and timely information. So whether it's promoting an upcoming event or say for now, we want to hit home some home safety tips for heating your home in the winter, we can put that here. And we also have the same calendar and newsflash module available where you can see what's coming up and also post some media releases for the community as well. Again, it's a baseline starting point. You can see the navigation sticks to the top of the page, so you can always see where you'd like to go if you don't find something when you're scrolling down. The organization process behind it is really kind of departmentalizing things in one area, but dividing it into services so that people may not necessarily associate
A department with that.
public works with bulk trash pickup.
Right.
So places where people can more easily find things. And again, it's not, when Civic Plus migrated over all of our content, it wasn't built out the way that we want it to be, but we're gonna do some rehashing of that. So any questions or anything else that you'd like to see with the new website?
Sounds good. Mr.
Just-
Brubaker.
Just one comment. Just within the past few days, 2 websites to major institutions, which are one private, one public, that I won't name, they are so channeled into the latest and the trendy that it's hard to get just plain, simple, basic information.
Right.
You have to hunt around for something that you ought to be able to get, because they're so trying to steer you. And this, again, public and private, not, pretty large organizations, and I won't name them. So I just watch for that. It's the only thing I send up. Yes, do the right thing, do the stuff that is in demand, that make it easy to navigate at the same time. And those two aren't always,
They're not cohesive.
yeah.
When we developed the Resident X311 feature, that was actually kind of the quick fix to reorganizing the website. And we developed that feature through our website analytics, where we could see what people were searching most often. We could see which pages had the most traffic.
Right.
And it is interesting, when there's a power outage somewhere in the city, you can go into the analytics and see there are like 8, 9, 10 searches for power outage. People expect to see that information on the website. But you can track things like that. Every October we get tons of searches for trick or treat. And that's information that we'll be able to make more visible on the front side of the website, where now we only have like 2 places where you can feature that key information.
Right, and that's good, and it's good to do the most frequent, but it's also good to have the staples, the phone numbers, the contacts, the departments ordered in an array that people can click once and then have
And
that in
get
front
directly
of
there.
them. Instead of having to just try to figure it out, and it's.
A central
when you have a
directory.
whole lots of glitzy stuff presented to you.
Are you saying you want to see like a central directory?
Well, it's
Like a staff
It
directory?
doesn't have to come right up, it's something
Right.
that's.
Easy.
I'm just saying, it has to be a compromise between, the hot current items and the glitzy items.
Right.
And just basic information
The
about
daily
the city.
quotidian.
Yeah. And it's hard to achieve that, I realize, but it's a balance.
As a content manager on the website, how easy is it, or is it possible even to, put something that timely up on the website if, like, let's say you're not in the office? Are you able to mobily get into the website to change content?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I was just curious. You didn't have to come back to the office in order to get in
Right,
on a
you can do it
desktop.
I can
to
do it from my phone if I
Okay.
wanted to. And the other thing.
24/7.
The other thing that you mentioned, our website currently has over 600 pages, and we'd really like to minimize that number, make the information more concise, and make it more easily navigable.
You want to be able to have a website designed where within 2 to 3 clicks, you can get to 90% of the information you want to have without making it, the menu system look overly cumbersome. How you get to that point is exactly what Aaron said. You take the 600 pages and you get that down to 100 pages or 75 pages. And you make your information more concise so that we have that issue in utilities, somebody trying to find an application for service. They might have to go through 6 different menu levels to get to that application. That has to change. We have to move that farther up. The other problem we have with this setup is Civic Plus has a standard way of presenting information that's not necessarily modifiable by us. If it gets to the point where we find that the information we want to present does not fall into the format that we see here, we may have to step back and reevaluate whether this is an appropriate platform to use. Whether we look at another developer that gives us a little bit more latitude, or or just kind of reevaluate how we present things.
Great. Any other questions, comments, feedback? I think this is great, much overdue. I know it takes a long time, but
And so while we were on the topic of websites, Sarah and I also wanted to give you an update on transitioning the Engage Hagerstown platform.
Yeah, so we've had the Engage Hagerstown online platform since about March of 2014. It was originally hosted by MindMixer, which recently rebranded itself as My Sidewalk and updated our platform. So we transitioned and soft launched in August with a new platform, but just a little bit of history on our MindMixer engagement efforts. We've been pairing online engagement with our traditional in-person channels and other outreach channels and branding everything under the Engage Hagerstown brand. And through the MindMixer from March of 2014 to August of this year, we had 500 users participate and 675 different ideas presented on that site, ranging from topics around park development to long-term planning, things like the city center plan or dual highway pedestrian safety, to public art projects like the pianos that went out in Public Square and outdoor movies in the park where trees are planted, all different things like that. So we were really successful with our original MindMixer platform. So we wanted to give you kind of a visual update on what the engagement site looks like now that we've transitioned to the My Sidewalk platform. We lose some of the features that we had on the original MindMixer site with the My Sidewalk platform, but it gives us a more streamlined look. So if you'll see the current Engage Hagerstown site is up there. So it operates, it's not so busy. It's got a little bit more of kind of a traditional blog and feed feel. So right now there are questions up on the public art on the A&E trail. There's one on the search for the new police chief, and then an initial question just on online engagement. And we're also hosting an initiative, which is something the old site didn't let us do, where comprehensive plan updates, it's a Vision Hagerstown 2035, we're able to solicit some feedback on our comprehensive planning updates through this. So you'll see a few questions up here as well. So we've soft launched and just started some heavier marketing of this site in the last 2 weeks, one with the police chief question and then also with the comp plan. And we're seeing feedback. We're excited about being able to use the new tool in concert with some of our more traditional engagement efforts. And just wanted to make sure you had at least visually seen kind of what the transition looked like. Hearing anything?
Good.
looks like it's better. It's an improvement.
Yeah, it's cleaner.
It's cleaner. We missed some of the functionality of the previous site, but we think it's still, people are still engaging in conversation. We're still giving people access to be part of our decision-making processes.
And can you remind me, how long has Engage Hagerstown been around now? Since
March of 2014.
March of 2014, and 500 users, that's up, I mean, because we started out with a pretty healthy
We were,
response
by
level, but
MindMixer's benchmarks in a community of our size, they would have liked to see 600 users. And actually,
We were close. We were about 580 when the site transitioned. So that was 600 was our target, and we had been steadily building.
I think that's good.
and MindMixer told us that we were exceeding expectations in terms of how other communities were functioning with their sites.
What's great, and I know part of the feature is that, you know, who is, you know, staff are listed as the people responding to these ideas, and I think that, again, helps people feel like they're actually engaging with people, not some website.
Yep. And we're still able to do that in this design.
Excellent. Any questions, feedback, comments? All right, thanks for the
Thank you.
update.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a 2015 COPS hiring grant.
Good evening.
Chief, how are you?
We're here in front of you tonight. A few months back, we applied for a COPS hiring grant through the Office of Community Oriented Policing Services through the federal government. And we got awarded that grant, but it's requiring approval from this council for us to accept the grant. So back a few months ago, Chief Holtzman presented you with an option to go for 6 officers. You guys authorized us to look for 4. We were authorized 4 officers. It's for a neighborhood guardianship program. It's for 4 officers to go and be assigned to at-risk neighborhoods or neighborhoods with low income and crime that's disparaging to that neighborhood. So we received that as a preventive plan. That'll be working alongside in conjunction with our intelligence-led policing programs, so CompStat, our Safe Streets model, which is another grant that we actually work off of as well. So the total portion of the grant for the city for 4 years, it's a 4-year grant, would cost the city $497,998.42 over the 4 years. This would raise our sworn strength from 108 to 112. And if anybody had any questions regarding this.
Just a little bit of some facts that I try to inferred from the memo. And the annual cost, regardless of who pays, is approximately $258,000. That's the 4th year or the 3rd year? 4th year. That's the 4th year.
Yes, I have some.
And so 260 is what, plus or minus, and I know you have to ballpark the future. Right now, that would be 240 or 230 or something like that. In other words, we don't have the full annual cost in this memo.
Yeah.
We have the 258 for the 3rd estimated year.
The annual cost per officer would be $31,124 per officer each year.
That would be the average cost,
That's
spread over the 4 years.
Yes.
Cost, full position cost, spread over the
Right.
4 years.
I actually have a projection worksheet that we
Yeah,
can,
that would be-
that would be good for everyone to take a
That
look
would
at.
be useful. Thank you.
Chief, I'm assuming you're recommending that we do this?
I am. Part of the issue is that when you apply for grants like this through the federal government and you get awarded those grants, if you would happen to turn those down, it's very likely that you could harm getting yourself any future federal grants in the future because of that. So at this point of the game, it would be detrimental to us for future grants if we would ever need to get another federal grant.
Well, the place I'm getting my 258,000 isn't, I don't see it on here, but
That's the retention.
that's,
That's if we
Yeah,
bear,
that-
that's where we bear the full cost, right?
that's 1 year at full cost that we have to do.
For the 4th year.
That's where I took
That would be
that
the
from.
fourth- that
That's
would be
how
the
I
4th year.
annualized it.
That would be the 4th year.
That would be the 4th year.
Right, so, and that's roughly the amount, a little bit less because of cost of living and so forth, are estimated, that we're paying between the federal government and our match per year.
Well, the amount that the locals share over the 3-year period.
I understand it's for.
Yeah, that would be the.
I understand all that. I'm just trying to get down to what's it simply cost per year. You know,
Total.
Establish that.
Both-
Total,
both.
both federal and city.
Okay.
And that's
Right.
roughly the 258.
Right.
A little bit less each year. Just want to establish that, because
Correct.
Yes.
and then, so every year after that year, if we keep the officers after the retention year, it's 258 plus whatever cost of living and
Yes.
steps.
That's correct, yes.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
And we did do projections on worst-case scenario for fiscal year 16 impact on how much it would cost the city for our portion. And even if we filled all 4 positions in January, which is highly unlikely, the overall cost for fiscal year 16 was still under $20,000 for the city. And both Jack and Chief Kiefer feel very confident, as well as I, that if we hire that many by January, we could find it in 16.
You can find it. So the source of funding is current budget levels, is that what I'm hearing? Is that
For this year?
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
for this year. Well, I'm just trying to ask, because it didn't say source of funding here either.
Yeah, we're currently at 105, we're authorized at 108, so we still have 3 vacancies to fill before we even would try to
But
fill
are
these
you
4.
proposing to absorb that 20 within your budget?
Yes,
That's what I want to be,
yes.
that's what I wanted to hear, right?
Any other questions? Mr. Munson?
The mission of this group, what did you call it when you started your comments?
The Neighborhood Guardianship Program?
That could apply to many different areas in the city, I think.
It will, yes, it will.
Does that mean that this program, this group of individuals will be moving around from area to area in the city?
There's a lot of leeway with this grant. What we had initially planned was to have 1 officer assigned per neighborhood, but then the other would help in those neighborhoods when necessary. If there's issues with our CompStat issues, or our intelligence is leading us to believe there's something that needs to be dealt with one specific neighborhood at this very time, then those 4 officers would be assigned to that neighborhood to address those issues. Again, this is about crime prevention, so we're working on trying to keep the crime from ever happening in those neighborhoods and bring that crime down. But yes, they can be movable and mobile in that sense.
How long is your hiring list at this point? Do you have applications from experienced officers? I would assume that with what's going on in Baltimore, there'd be a lot of them who'd like to come west.
Well, we're currently still trying to hire. We had gotten up to almost full staff, and we just lost a few officers. We've got 1 more retiring here at the end of the month. So that puts us down and before we even get to these 4 officers here. And according to the grant, we need to be at full staff before we can even hire or go to hire these officers. We have 5 coming out of the academy. The other avenue we need to really worry about is not bringing too many on all at once, because the field training aspect would get overwhelmed. So by bringing these 5 on out of the academy and maybe picking up another 1 or 2 here before January would be great. And we can manage that. That gives us some time to pick through and get some really qualified candidates coming in beginning of next year.
When's the academy class completed?
Mid-December.
Okay.
They'll be out mid-December.
Does the grant have a limit on when it starts? So like I heard you say you have to hire the vacancies before that grant even kicks in. So does the grant start the year we hire those cops and then last 3 years, or does it have to be used in a certain 3-year period?
The way it works is that if we hire 4 officers, and that carries through as long as they're here. So once they're hired on, that grant covers their salary.
Okay.
It covers this portion of it.
So there's no
If they would
limitation in
leave-
how soon we use that grant?
No, it's just we have
Okay.
to be actively looking for
Gotcha.
and trying to recruit.
Then it's 3 calendar years from their hire?
4 total.
4 total,
Yeah.
including the retention.
Right, including retention year.
Thank you.
Now, it's not calendar year, it really would fall down to, if someone would leave from one of those people that we hire, then that grant position, the money for that stops at that point until we hire someone to replace them, then it picks it back up.
Gotcha.
So it just doesn't go calendar year. Like, we're still on one of the other cops hiring grants that we've had before, that was supposed to be a 4-year, has been well past that, because
Because of-
that's just how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's calendar year for the person that sticks it out.
It would
From
be,
the time you
it would be the time that they were hired till,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
And then I have another fiscal question, just so we all understand. You say the city's portion of the matching grant is estimated to be $230, now I'm gonna round that to $240. Over a 3-year period, that's $80,000 a year roughly. So you're saying for a full fiscal year, it would be about $80,000 that the city administrator would have to find, or you would have to find But I presume you're not gonna say you're gonna eat that year after year. I presume that next year.
Yeah.
It would be, I'm just trying to clarify what the terms are. Is that how you understand it?
Yes.
Because again, I'm interpolating there, but be about 80,000 for an average fiscal year. I know it's all jumbled up by your hires. But
Yes.
But 80,000.
Yes.
Okay. And then 200, almost 260 for the full year retention year.
Yes.
Any other comments or
Chief,
questions?
If you hire an officer from an active officer in another police force who has already attended the academy, can he come directly onto the job as soon as he's hired, or does he or she have to repeat the academy?
The only time they repeat the academy is if they've been out of police services for a length of time. And that's 3 years. If it's a lateral transfer, someone within the state, they come on, they go right into a field training program with us. If they're someone that's a police officer out of our state, they come in, they have to attend the Comparative Compliance Academy, which is basically just a 5-week school they have to go to.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we'll be getting close to the assessment cycle after this one, after this next one.
Any other, I'm assuming there is a consensus, I don't hear any opposition to the grant. Penny, you're good?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. If there was anybody that was gonna
I
start
know.
screaming, I would
I
have been
just-
screaming at them.
Just wanted to affirm your
Oh,
support.
yeah, you better believe it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. That brings us to city administrators' comments.
Just a reminder that city offices are closed tomorrow in observance of Veterans Day, and that I understand the annual wreath laying will occur at the Washington County Courthouse at 11 o'clock. And I would like to call Rodney up for a minute because he wanted to talk to you all about the question that was raised last meeting about the flag at Fairgrounds
Ah,
Park.
yes.
Eric has a picture of it.
See how huge that tower
Yeah.
is now compared to what it was?
Yeah, the tower was replaced a few years ago. It's much taller. And the issue for us, this is the Fairgrounds Park, the issue is that the cable is much longer. So, and this flag is very large, so when the wind blows, it pulls the flag out from the post, from the tower itself. And when the wind changes, the flag has a tendency to want to wrap around the cable. We think there's a couple things we could do to fix this, but it's not our tower. So we're going to work with Chantel, and we're going to take the flag down for now because it's constantly doing that, and we don't think that's the right thing to have it do.
Right.
So we're going to take it down for now, but we're going to work with Chantel to come up with a solution to this.
Great.
And that certainly does look like a very small flag compared to when the tower was smaller and the
Right.
flag was, of
I
course,
think
the
it's the same
size.
size, maybe
Yes,
even bigger.
yes, but the tower, yeah.
That's right.
That doesn't.
So we'll try to get this resolved here as soon as we can.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions or? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
all I have.
All right. Council comments. I'll start with Mr. Brubaker.
Yes, I want to say thanks to the code enforcement officers. They're gone now, but because they're not appreciated, regulations are criticized in general, but when it's your street, the property next to you, your neighborhood, people are thankful to have it. It's a tough job, nobody appreciates it, and, I want to commend them for all their efforts, as well as Rodney and the staff in the city for the different stuff they put together for the Sustainable City Award. Hagerstown has a lot to be proud of, and, our citizens, I hope they realize that.
Thanks. Mr. Alshire.
Couple of things. The first is I attended the Homeless Coalition meeting last week. I won't bore you with a long summary, but suffice it to say, I've attended a few now, and probably more than that in my entire time that board's been in existence, that I've been in office. But a couple of things clear to me. One is, I don't fully understand each of those agencies' operations any more than they probably understand, our thoughts and philosophies on community development. What is somewhat apparent to me is there seems to be in those discussions, as I brought up some issues of our sort of goals and concerns, some agencies that share in that concern and community accountability. Those that I think have an objective of activity to accomplish and are focused solely on that. And then frankly, there are some that appear to have no interest in accommodating whatever broader goals and visions that we may have for the stability and betterment of this community. And that's just a simple perspective of one person sort of sitting in a room talking about the issues. A good example is Reach, I think outlined, that they're going to start wanding and use canine, thanks to Acting Chief Kiefer, and individuals not from the community will be transported to the communities from which they arrived here. And so, on the converse of that, we had a brief discussion about the relocation of individuals from the Dagmar to 100 block of East Washington. A simple suggestion of having a discussion on whether that's good or bad for that neighborhood. You could clearly see that there were those that I don't think have a huge interest whether that's good or bad for that neighborhood. And I think as representatives of our citizens, we need to have the opportunity to ask those questions. The other is I attended the Herald Mail Maryland Theater event last night, the cooking show, and I was outside as a vendor most of the time, so I didn't get to see much of the activity. What I did see, though, is
What was that? I didn't even.
There were hundreds of people, there and at the theater, and if you're into that sort of thing, you probably had a good time. Watching local restaurateurs and brewing entities cook things up. It was sort of supposed to be like a show you would watch on television.
Nice.
It's their first time doing it, and I think it's one of those things where they'll certainly be back, and it's certainly a process where you learn and grow with it on what folks did and didn't like about the event. The other is I noticed there was, the mayor, you were at the diversity discussion last evening. I did have an opportunity in the last week to see the Board of Education member Harshman, her comments about our community and downtown in particular. And I would only say from those comments that I saw, if anybody needed to be at that diversity training last night, it was probably that member of the board, because I think that type of outlook on your community starts from the top and reflects on down. And the other comment I wanted to make, there were two articles, I think, today. One, I think the other one was actually the other day, but the one was Hagerstown firm, leaves the state. And, and I commented, and I'm just thinking, and I realize that the good reporters at the Herald don't write the headlines, but, number one, it's not a firm of Hagerstown. We didn't own it. It isn't even in Hagerstown. It doesn't even have a Hagerstown address. It has a Williamsport address. So, and the whole article was about the inability of the state to provide enough incentive to capture and retain that business here in this county. And so, that headline certainly sends a message to a what I will call a citizenry of convenience that want, the briefest piece of information in every discussion as immediately as possible to move on to the next subject. That's just simply how we function, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or what have you.
Wrong.
Yeah, and my point is we should strive to get information correct. And another example of that is if anybody saw the headline, Washington County is a hub for sexual trafficking, and you go in and then you read into the article that, there's 120 cases statewide, and this expert had no empirical data whatsoever to indicate that any such activities taking place in this county. It just.
I'm sure she goes to every community and says the same
well,
thing,
and that's
just
what
to
I thought.
raise
I was like,
awareness of the issue.
Yeah, it's like a self-preservation expert where, okay, you have 1781, so you must have it, and be a magnet community simply because you have two interstates that intersect. And that's the headline, and I'm sure a lot of folks read the headline and go, oh, yeah, I already knew that was a bad place, and don't bother to read the article on the issue. So, I think the point there is, as virtual and ready as we make our information today, that we need to ensure that we're not selling our own selves short or false in that process. So, just my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Munson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to congratulate a company called Allegheny Wrecking. They're the company that tore down the buildings on Baltimore Street at the Massey site. And as I said last week, they've done a marvelous job. They would have probably been finished today if the weather had cooperated, but it didn't. All that remains is a fence, a few recyclables there, and somebody needs to put some fill dirt in and some grass, and it's going to look quite lovely. It's going to be a really fine example of what can be accomplished when people get involved and work together. And I would like to remind the people who are looking at us that this was a project done with cooperation between the county commissioners of Washington County and the government of Hagerstown. And when that happens, a lot can be accomplished. And I hope that regarding several issues we've been discussing lately, but particularly the education hub, that the county commissioners can start using the example of what's happened on Baltimore Street as what could happen with the education hub, perhaps the expansion of our university in downtown as examples of working together to cooperate. Also, there was something that I talked to our administrator about, a little old sign on Baltimore Street, right near the Massey building, that had outlived its usefulness probably 25 years ago. And it was, once the improvements had been pretty much made up there, the sign was really out of place. And so I asked Valerie about the possibility of getting it down. And I just want everybody to know that today, a crew from Public Works, the Eric Klein crew, went out and took that sign down in the rain and in the cold. And they deserve a lot of credit for that. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the mayor and council.
Which sign was it?
And, I'm sorry.
Which sign?
What?
Which sign did they take
Oh, it
down?
was an empty sign frame that was sitting
okay.
right near
I gotcha.
the Massey building, and it had probably been there for 40 years and probably hadn't been used for 25 or 30 years.
Gotcha.
And with the other work that had been done there to help the neighborhood, it really stuck out it really stood out as a sore thumb. And so they went in there today and took it down in the bad weather. And it's an example of how much our people who work for the city do to improve the place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Nye?
All right, I have a lot. I went to the liquor board hearing last Wednesday, and all I can say is I have to commend the liquor board. They honestly were right on top of what they needed to be on top of. And hopefully, the pub will do exactly what they want them to do, because if they don't, I can see that it's going to be another establishment that will be going by the wayside. If you would have been there, it was just like deja vu when we had Mita's, we had Duke's, we had the Town Tavern, we had all of this, and the problems that are even worse now because it was mentioned of guns. But I do have to commend them as well as the police department, the state police. They really had all the information that they needed, and the board knew that it was, take a look and be very, very careful here, because we could have a problem. So hopefully, all three entities are supposed to get back together again to see where it all stands. So now we will see exactly what does happen with the pub. And in that, Kristen, I know, had sent out one of his responses, because too, when you said about a local business, not local business, and it's always Hagerstown, all right? The response from one of the owners of the pub said, well, if you know yourself, the people that are coming now to Hagerstown are not like Hagerstown used to be. So again, they are labeling everybody that is here in Hagerstown, it is, that are going into the pub, and that in itself, I'm sure, is not so. So, you know, that's just another thing, we get labeled as we continue to get beat up on, this is Hagerstown, what do you expect? But it was really quite interesting, and I used to attend a lot of the hearings when in fact it did deal with a lot of the taverns, so they were really right on mark. I also attended the All-County Honors Concert, and all I can tell you, that was Saturday night. The ones that were the teachers, professors, whatever, one was from Georgia, I forget where the other one was from, but had said how Washington County, what a pleasure it was to be able to have a county that still does have the arts, and I hope that it never stops. Because with what the one instructor said, is that when these children start out, and they start out in the arts, and they continue with the arts, they will have a mark in life, and that really does mean a lot. So it really bothers me in the fact, because I've really not gotten into the whole academic hub thing. I know that Kristen and I were on board with it right from the beginning. And I know that when the mayor was very upset the other week, that everything just kind of like went bloop everywhere. And so bring it back to reality, and reality for me is that while Barbara Ingram is getting beat up in the newspaper, and I do have a granddaughter there, and it's not that I am biased, I wish that I would have had a son that would have had that type of education, that perhaps school work would have been much more important, and he would have gotten all of it together. But these kids at Barbara Ingram are really taking a hit, and it amazes me how the board can sit there and they can say whatever they want to say, and people can say what they want to say in the newspaper, and how we should just forego this. But yet, I would like to know, and I really have not gone to Wilcox, how much did we actually put into the Antietam Academy that was once called the alternative school? And in talking to a lot of individuals, it's those children, and not that I think that there's no child that should not have an education, they should all. But if they're not willing to have that education, why is it that we have to invest millions and millions of dollars into children that don't want to learn? Or they should be in a place, in an environment, that if they need more help, they should be there. But yet they are denying kids here, which is probably the same amount of kids, and even more to expand that education.
Kids with goals and.
Yes, it's really, it makes no sense. And the more that I think about this, the more I think of the Antietam Academy as being this huge place that was really much more than most of the other schools. And it just really blows my mind. And I'm going to get beat up all over the place for this, but I really don't care. If the kids don't want to be taught, then how can we make them?
Penny, you are aware that the state of Maryland increased the age of compulsory education, and it will change to 17 as of July of next year, and the following year it'll be until 18.
Yeah. But
So the schools had no choice.
But the bottom line, if these kids don't want to go to school, they're not going to go to school. and you can keep them in school, and they're gonna continue to make the problem, okay? But here we are. So again, it's higher government that continues to create the problem, and then it is local government that continues to play the game off of one another. And all of this, to be quite truthful with you, I think all came as a result when we had two developers that wanted to do one thing, one developer who wanted to do another thing. We could not come to a conclusion, so gee, this is what happened. And it's very unfortunate, and that's in my view. Also, I'd like to know, because hearing what we have in arbitration cases, that I think we've already had one, and I think the city lost that. I think we've got one that's coming up, another one in January, and then we have binding arbitration. I really would like to know about how much money we are spending out in attorneys. Because I'm concerned in the fact that with the arbitration cases, that we're not going to the levels that we need to go to, even though we're supposed to be going to those 3 steps here in the city, that we're ending up with an arbitrator. And I really, when I sat here, I don't remember a lot of arbitration cases, and I don't know if you have when we were, but I'm seeing more and more, and I don't know what's happening in human resources, that we now are having this trend, because it still is costing the city money. Also, we now have got another key player that is leaving the city of Hagerstown, and that would be Andrew Sargent. We've lost 2 key players, and that is a really, really loss to the city as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully, we will be able to fill this position, and with somebody who has got enough of get up and go as Andrew did have, and he will continue on wherever he does go. It's just that I feel it's unsettling to the staff, as well as to the organizations that he has worked with, and for the ones that he has collaborated with the whole time that he has been here. And that's been a short time. He really has not been here that long. So quite frankly, where he is going, I'm sure they were able to see a really positive and gobbled him right up. He was a staff liaison to many of the groups. He was with the Downtown Movement, Downtown Alliance, Main Street. He was a great asset to economic development downtown, and he was very much in tune with the arts and entertainment. The whole development of downtown, he just has a positive approach about everything. It was a get up and go. And I know other people may have their differences, but I'm gonna tell you something. When I'd say, okay, do we have this moving yet? And he was always enthusiastic about it. I've never seen anybody that really had a negative, even though it could have been a negative, he was not negative. I just hope that we can keep the momentum up, because we certainly do need it, and now it's going to be a very, very crucial time for economic development. But again, I just wish that we could have only done something to perhaps have kept these 2 players, because they certainly were still needed at the city. That's it.
All right, Mr. Metzner.
I want to thank Valerie and Rodney for the flag explanation. There's a lot of people out there that are very interested in this, and proverbial picture is worth 1,000 words. And Don, it's interesting to drive down Baltimore Street and now to look where those places have been torn down and see what's always been there, but it's been hidden, and that's a magnificent tree. It's just absolutely beautiful in the middle of this property. It truly is, and it was something that was just nobody ever even noticed back there. And I also am very optimistic that we are going to be able to come forth with some private funding for naming of a potential park there, and some other accoutrements that could go in there. So I think it's all positive.
Excellent, thanks. Well, I do want to remind folks the Veterans Day is tomorrow, and in addition to the 11 o'clock ceremony at the courthouse, there's also an unveiling of a Blue Star Memorial at the Long Meadows Rotary Park on Northern Avenue at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. And This past week was fairly busy. The Engine Room Art Space opened up last week, which was very nice, so I encourage everybody to go visit and check out the local art scene. I had the pleasure of giving out the Mayor's Cup, I don't know if that's the word for it, but the big trophy to the South Hagerstown Rebels football team on Friday night at the North-South game. But I will say that last night, the North High varsity volleyball team crushed South High. So I had to give a shout out to them, especially because my cousin plays on their team. And on Saturday, I had the pleasure of reading some golden books at the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. And they opened up their Golden Legacy exhibit. And I would highly encourage everybody to check that exhibit out. They've got original artwork from the Golden Book library, if you will, of many of the different books. I don't even think you could begin to count the number of books. So they have just a sampling of original artwork, and it's really fantastic. I highly encourage everybody to check that out. And I did want to update folks. You know, I took a look at the video of the Board of Education's meeting last week too, and was pretty disturbed by comments made by an elected official, not grounded in facts. But, you know, there is that old adage, never let the facts get in the way of a good argument. And so I wanted to reach out to Ms. Harshman on the Board of Education to have a personal conversation about her opinions. She did finally call me back this morning, and the conversation did not end well because she wanted to double down on her positions that the city is unsafe, and that she would not send her children down here. And I reminded her, especially after the meeting last night at the Zion Baptist Church in the Jonathan Street community, that there are many children who live down here, and that these children live in these neighborhoods every day, and they walk these streets. They stand on the corner and wait for their bus in the morning. And, you know, you can tell me that the day after you make that statement, someone gets stabbed in the city of Hagerstown. But once again, let's not let the facts get in the way of a good argument, because she didn't want to hear that practically 99% or more of the violent crime that happens is not random. And I find it highly interesting that a Board of Education member who has not even stepped foot in the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts could make such statements about the safety or the perception of safety even. So after she hung up on me in our phone conversation today, I called her back and left a message inviting her to meet with me and the chief of police to review actual data about crime in Hagerstown. And, you know, it's funny because I'll see in the news that, you know, someone gets shot in Williamsport. And I feel so tempted to go onto Facebook and say, oh my God, Williamsport's so unsafe, I'm never going there again. But, you know, when bad things happen here in Hagerstown, we're made out to be like the streets of OK Corral. And so again, I'm highly disappointed that somebody in a position such as hers would make such statements of invective and that are not grounded on facts. And, you know, it made me think that, you know, when I took this oath of office and when I deliver the oath of office, that I do so with the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, and without partiality or prejudice. And I would hope that people in other elected bodies would do the same thing. And just one last comment on that. I hope that nobody misunderstands or mistakes my passion for not only education, but for the city of Hagerstown. I hope nobody mistakes that passion as anger, because I do think as elected officials, whether at the county level, county commissioners, or the Board of Education, we are their constituents, not the other way around. And Ms. Harshman represents the children of Hagerstown as much as she represents her own children or children in other parts of the county. So I'm willing and open to have a dialogue to talk about the facts of crime and the safety in downtown. But you go out and talk to these kids on the street, as I have when I've been to the school and when I see these kids on the street going between classes, and they love it. And, you know, in world where continually more and more people are moving to cities, now more than ever, we have to prepare our children for living in cities. And I think Hagerstown is simply the poster child of every American city. We're no different, we're no more safe or unsafe than any other city our size. I would argue we're probably a little safer relative to other cities just like us in Maryland. But again, we have an elected official who doesn't want to let facts get in the way of a good argument, who doesn't even seem to be open about it. And when I called her out about calling the city bankrupt, as she has before in public, she wanted to double down on that again. And so I don't know if any mature adult conversation with her where we're reviewing facts would do any good, because she seems entrenched in her opinion. And I don't know how we would get beyond that. But I think the public has a right to know that a Board of Education member made such a statement completely based on innuendo and her opinion, but I believe it was to the detriment of all the efforts that we're trying to achieve here in Hagerstown, and creates a perception that is not the reality.
It's sad that she never reached out to any of the kids. You know, that, again, they start at the top. They don't go to the source. And the source are those kids that go to that school. And that's what they don't get.
Well, and what really gets me is, the argument that that we can't do this hub project because if we do this and we do it creatively in terms of a public-private partnership, and we'd have to spend some public money. But the main argument against it seems to be, well, we would be foregoing state money, which A, is not necessarily true, because there are other forms of state money besides education money that could be in play. And B, we just saw Frederick County estimate the cost of their new high school to be $140 million. And so if the state pays 72% of $140 million, we're still left with a $40 million bill. So it seems awfully penny-wise and pound-foolish to me to say, well, we don't want to spend $15 million on an academic hub because we'd be giving up $100 million on a comprehensive high school, which we're going to be on the hook for $40 million. Not to mention the fact that a comprehensive high school will only serve a limited portion of the county's students, whereas a facility like Ms. Nye suggested for students with goals, who have an idea, whether it's arts or some kind of career completer that they want to pursue, that is an opportunity for students in all of Washington County. And I want to thank folks like Senator Serafini and Delegate Brett Wilson and those folks at the county who do support this project, because, again, I think more people need to speak out about what is positive about this project and create some real pressure on these other elected officials, not in a mean or nasty way. Again, don't mistake passion for anger, but that this is a real economic development booster for the city of Hagerstown, in addition to being an opportunity for students all over Washington County. But to make statements, blanket statements of invective that are not based in any facts whatsoever, and not even being willing to look at facts, to me is really negligence in terms of the duties of that public official. So I hope to get a return call. I hope that we can sit at the table and look at some data and talk about what these perceived issues are. And I hope that we can keep this ball rolling in the future to keep this project alive.
And one other thing, I believe that the School for the Arts is one of the best ranked academic schools in the state of Maryland.
It is indeed.
Even though it's only been around a very short time, comparatively speaking.
And the vision of that school and what it's created has become a model, not only just around this state, but around the country, for how school systems can work creatively and collaborate, in public-private partnerships to drive these kinds of projects, not only, again, for economic development, but for educational purposes. Anyway, I hope to keep the conversation going. Any other comments for the good of the cause? We shall be adjourned. Thank you.